Welcome back to the It's Bigger Than Me podcast for this special season of these amazing, amazing authors from the Restore My Soul anthology, stories of redemption, hope, and deliverance. I have the absolute honor and pleasure of interviewing so many of the amazing authors in this book. And so I have Miss Karen Mettam, all the way from the UK, joining us here to talk about her story. But before we dive into that, Karen, I would love to be able to just hear a little bit more about yourself, even though I know you, but the folks at home may not.
Thank you, and it's an honor to be here. Thank you so much. So yeah, I'm based in the UK, in the north of England, in Yorkshire. I work as a sign language interpreter for my main job, which is what I absolutely adore doing. Got four children, I've got two grandchildren, and I've been married to Tim for 25 years next year. So busy life and loving it.
I love it. I love it. Well, Karen, your story is so impactful in this book. And I know you and I have had conversations of just your family being impacted by your story and so many others being like, I had no idea. So, without giving it all away, because we want them to go get the book, share a little bit of why this story and what the story is about.
Yeah, so my story is kind of going through some of the things that I went through as a child and growing up through church, but still going through things like sexual abuse, getting pregnant before I was married, going through abortion, but the more the kind of like aim of the story that I want to bring out of that is the forgiveness and restoration that God brings out of all that, and realizing that in everything that I was going through, in all the dark times, that Jesus was with me every single step of the way, And in Psalm 23, it says, I will lead you beside still waters and in green pastures, and I will walk with you through the valley of the shadow of death. And for me, that whole psalm is about knowing that whatever it is that I'm going through, whether that's a good day or whether that's a bad day, that Jesus is with me on every single day. And it says in that same psalm that goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life. And again, whether that's a good day, whether that's a bad day, goodness and mercy are following me all the time. And so it wasn't a focus on this is what happened to me. It's a focus on look what God did.
Mm, that's so beautiful. And then that's what we get to lean on, right? Because things are going to happen in our control, out of our control. But like, what does the word say and what it's done for you? Because I'm sure any of those things that you listed off, that you'd went through, getting pregnant, the abortion, just other things before marriage, the church, sexual abuse. There's so many things where people could just get locked up and, well, I'm just going to keep this here and I don't want anybody to know about it. But talk about, were there any parts of this that maybe you haven't shared before that either brought you freedom or were, freedom for other people? Maybe you've heard some feedback.
Mm. I think for me, it's the first time that I've really shared the part about having an abortion. That's the bit that it was really on my heart, because I think sometimes when you grow up and people know you, they know that part of you. And they don't realize a lot of things, because I never told a soul, I never told anybody about what I was going through. So they had a perception of me. My children didn't know anything about that kind of part of my story, because that all happened way before, they happened way before they came along. Um, and so that was the part of my story that I really wanted to share, because I feel that there are women in churches all across the world that have gone through that have never told a soul, exactly the same way that I didn't, because I'm like, where do I go? Because the church wasn't a safe place for
Mm.
me to go and say, look, I got pregnant again and I chose to have an abortion. I'm still a Christian, and it makes no sense until it makes no sense. And it's like, and so the only person that I could go to with all this was Jesus. And it's like he's my hiding place, he's my refuge, he's my strong tower. He's the point that I kind of go to when I'm like, God, I don't even understand this. And still processing all the things that had happened with the abuse and, sexual abuse and things like that. So I'm like, I can't go to people in church and say, hey, you don't believe in abortion, but here I am as a Christian. And that's what I've chosen to do. And so, yeah, and I know that there are women that are still years after the event have still living in that secret, and honestly the like release that God gave me once I started sharing this story has been amazing. And even my youngest son, he's like, I had no clue you went through all that. And I'm like, but I've never shared that until now.
Yes. Wow. I mean, I want to commend you for sharing that because it's still, I mean, it's heavy and it's not to poo-poo on the church or anything, but like they don't really do a
Mm,
good job when it comes to that topic. It's like abortion and divorce. It's kind of like we're left on our own to figure it out. And
yeah.
ultimately we get to go to Jesus with that and have that relationship and he gets to show us. And it's
Mm,
definitely,
yeah.
there's guidance in the word. But it does break my heart because it's like, you're right. There are so many people that I'm sure have gone through that or know somebody. Even recently, it kind of dawned on me. I feel like in the last several months, like when an abortion happens, like the man too, like, it's not just the
Yeah.
woman, but like the man
No.
too. Like there's a grieving for all. And then it's like, how do you deal with it? Well, just kind of shove it down and figure it
Yeah.
out later. And nobody figures it out. So then that's just festering there. And Lord knows, only knows that what that's bringing. So I
Yeah,
just want to
that's
commend you for bringing that to light. So it opens up the conversation
yeah.
so the light can come in and start to heal.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's also a process of actually giving yourself permission to grieve, because I very much went through the thing of like, well, I chose this.
Mm,
I chose to do this. And how can I then grieve in the same way that somebody that's gone through miscarriage can grieve because they didn't choose that? And I've had some really powerful conversations with women that have gone through miscarriage, and me sort of like, well, I've still lost a baby. I still feel that loss. I still felt that grief, that pain. And it's like, how can we then kind of connect, on that kind of level of baby loss? I mean, I think yesterday was um baby loss day at like International World. I can't think of the name of it, but it's like basically for any people that have lost babies. And they have like international day of kind of recognition of that baby loss. And there's part of me that it's like, do I have do I have the right to actually join in on that? So even now, it's still bringing up questions of like, oh, that's interesting. I've never thought of that before.
yeah, that is very interesting. And at the end of the day, like you feel the loss, you feel what happened, and
Mm.
there's things that we do, whether we would go back and do the same thing or not. Like there's a grieving in a lot of areas that I think a lot of people are like, oh, I don't deserve to grieve. But you know what?
Yes.
Like there's a reason why we feel that. And so pressing into that and then asking for healing around that, I think is so
Yeah.
powerful. So I just honor your vulnerability and what you're able to bring in this chapter because I know it's already. And I know it will be setting so many more women free of like just opening up that thought, the questions, even just to mutter, to like utter it out loud, which
Yeah.
is absolutely amazing. So, whether it's writing this chapter in this anthology or just your story in general, is there any kind of word of encouragement or word of wisdom you'd love to leave the listeners with about just any part of this process?
I think for me, it's knowing that there is nothing that separates us from the love of God, unless it's you're choosing to do that. And I chose to kind of distance myself from God for a while because I'm like, how can he forgive me for what I've chosen to do? But taking those verses and saying, is that real? Is that true for me? Is that true for everybody else? Or am I singling myself out to say, well, it's true for everybody else, but not for me?
Mm,
And I had to come to the conclusion, if I thought that, then God could not be God, because he's a God that loves everybody. And I talk about this in my chapter, that God loves everybody in the same way. So whether it's the person that abused me as I was growing up, or whether it's things that I've done, God sees no difference in that, in what we've done. And the way that he is crazy about me as he is about as crazy as, you know, he loves me as much as he loves the guys that were also doing things and acting out of their pain and they're kind of, messed up. I was messed up. They were messed up. And so we're all messed up. And I think just realizing, just give ourselves grace over that.
yes.
Um, and just realize that we live in that. And we've got a God that accepts us, loves us for who we are right now and how we come to him in all our different stages of being messed up. That there's nothing that we can do that separates us from him. So, and I would just sort of like say, just give yourself that permission to forgive yourself, but to accept God's forgiveness as well.
Beautiful. Karen, thank you so much. Just so many words of wisdom. It's just amazing to be able to read your words on this chapter. And so go on Amazon, buy this book. It is an Amazon bestseller, which is amazing. So many people are, again, just being able to receive that redemption and that hope of like, wow, if they can share this, then there's hope for me. So thank you so much for sharing that hope-filled story. And thanks for coming on the show today.
It's been good. Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode. It means the world to me that you would lean in, listen in, and be able to hear the value that's being shared on this show. Don't forget, if you love this episode, rate the show, leave me a review, be sure to share it with a friend, and don't forget to tag me on social media. I will definitely be giving you a shout out. Also, come say hi, drop in the DMs. I would love to be able to hear what stood out to you the most on the episode and if there's any topics that you would like to hear on the show. We'll see you next time.